Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast, it's Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Silverline's Wednesday Night Wham! Hosted by me. That's right. Tonight we're hosted by myself, Tim TK. Scott is currently seeing the goat about a man, and we will be the ones holding on the fort tonight, talking about covers, cover art, as well as some other fun stuff to fill the time as we move into the last hour. As I said before, I am Tim TK, Associate Editor at Silverline, writer-creator of Wolf Hunter, and recipient of a recently fantastically arted cover piece by Dean Zachary. Dean, introduce yourself.
Hello there, my name is Dean Zachary. I am the writer-creator of Silverblade, and I enjoy drawing covers for my colleagues here at Silverline as well. And we're here tonight to talk about a lot of cool stuff, including cover content and how closely or not closely it should match the interior of a comic book. But before we get into that, I'll pass it along to my colleagues. Tommy, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hello, everybody. My name is Thomas Florimonte Jr. I've been doing this comic book thing for, 30-some-odd years, I guess, early 90s. And I've worked for pretty much everybody at some point or another, if not under my name. I did, a lot of ghosting, what they call it, where you're helping other friends out and stuff. Did a lot of work for a bunch of bunches of folks, but for Silverline, I am actually inking. Just almost dropped my iPad on the floor. We got done with the Trump's book, book 1 and 2. That was kickstarted a couple of months ago. It's out. You can pick that up at Indie Planet. Currently, I'm trying to finish up here in the next week or so the Silverline team up book. Featuring Champion and Miss Fury, and that's being penciled by Mr. Pete Clinton. He's on the Sunday show, and it's being colored by Miss Roberta Conroy. She's also on the Sunday show. It's being written by Roland Mann, the publisher, the main honcho. What does he call himself? The bottle washer? I don't know. Toilet scrubber. Toilet scrubber, I think. Toilet scrubber? I don't know. Anyway, and then I am working with Dean on the Silverblade book, and we'll get jamming on that. Been kind of doing some promotional stuff and getting some things. I got a couple of pages here I'm going to pull up tonight so we can look at it a little bit. And then I'm also inking Rejects, which is another book that's by Mr. C. Michael Lanning, which is supposed to be on tonight, but we don't know where he's at. So I think he was on another show. He might come in a little bit later. And I'm also finally the co-owner of the comic book printing company Kablam, and that's kablam.com, and we're the #1 comic book printing company of the world. My microphone's over here. I noticed I was watching the number one. I keep doing this, but my microphone's over here, so that looks stupid. I should put my microphone. The #1, that would look there. The #1 comic book, that looks better. But I think that, and then I'm also working. I do my own Kid Hero stuff under Inferno Studios, and I'm working with my buddy Barry Gregory. He's also the co-owner of the Kablam with his Gallup stuff. We're doing all kind of stuff there, and I'm actually working with Cassisi on a book. I'm doing some pages here and there, and there's a couple other little secret things I can't talk about. Maybe once they get announced, I'll be able to tell you guys. But there's that. So I guess who's next? Mr. Bryant, who's next?
Take it away, Brett.
Wow, you guys have a lot to say about yourselves. Okay.
What are you trying to? I'm leaving. Why do you make me sound like you're talking about?
My name is Brent Larson. I am the creator and writer on the Silverline book Kalis, the third and fourth issues, which will be kickstarted hopefully in a couple of months together. Also, I'm the creator and writer on the Silverline book Cape Town. And I'm also a screenwriter. Recently, a film that I wrote and produced was released. It's called Vigilant. It's actually an anti-addiction piece that deals with a guy who is addicted to Twinkies. It is a comedy with some action. Also, I own a Camry, a green one. And also, I mow my lawn semi-frequently. I have complaints from the HOA that I deal with on a semi-regular basis. I also,
How much do you owe in back fees from not mowing?
Oh, I managed to keep that off. Plus, I'm a big fan of Del Taco. I believe in it as an entity above Taco Bell. I believe the two of them do not deserve to share the same sentence. Therefore, I'm going to say Del Taco is better than, full stop. Then Taco Bell, not as good as, full stop. I know it's bad English. I'm sorry, but that's just the way the universe works. I could keep going, but I have the feeling it's such a bad idea. So, I grow bacon.
Yes. I feel like we need to get back in touch with Scott about our potential sponsorship deal with Del Taco.
I think so.
Yeah.
The benefit.
Yes. You don't even need a non-monetary reward. We just want regular taco access. So tonight's a subscription to Del Taco would be perfect.
Del Taco Plus, if you will.
Yes.
Sign up, and you get regular updates on their menu changes. You get,
It's like the Regal Rewards app. So like once a month you can go and get like a free additional drink with your order or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We laugh now, but just wait till we launch Silverline Plus. Then we won't be laughing.
All right.
Can I tell y'all my Del Taco story just from the other
Sure.
day?
Absolutely.
Sure, it's a nice segue. Go
So,
for it.
Not too much of that. But anyway, so, we've got a Del Taco right by the Kablam office. I typically go there once or twice a week, and I'll pick myself up the number 9 combo, if you guys out there know what that is, which is a spicy burrito combo with well, anyway. So, my complaint with Del Taco is they have French fries with their tacos. Now, y'all have heard me complain about this all the time. Why are they selling French fries with their tacos? And so every time I go through and I go, can I get the chips and queso instead of the French fries? And so the lady now recognizes my voice because I'm apparently I'll get to that. So I go through, I order the thing, and I said, so instead of French fries, she goes, you want chips and queso instead of, and I said, yeah, how do you know? And she goes, you're the only one that asked for it. And so I get around to the drive-thru, to pay, and I go, look, I got a question for you. And she's like, what? I'm like, how many people actually get the French fries instead of the chips and queso? And she goes, you are the only one that gets chips and queso instead of fries. Everybody else orders fries with their thing. So I just went asking you guys, with your tacos, like if you were at the house making tacos, just at the house, or if you went to, say, a Mexican place and you were getting tacos or burritos or whatever, or a fajita or whatever it is, Are they bringing the stuff to the table? Do you say, take these chips and salsa away? I want French fries. Answer that for me.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. I
That
would
is
never
ridiculous.
do that.
Yeah, but
It
she
is.
said, I am the only
Sure,
one
just like
that
Del
ever asked
Taco.
for chips and queso.
Well,
And she wasn't
This
lying.
is the way I
could
look
tell
at
she
it.
wasn't lying.
Del Tacos has fries because they're Del Taco. Del Taco is not Tex-Mex. Del Taco is Del Taco. It is an entity unto itself. Under the dictionary, if you look up Del Taco, it will have Del Taco listed as its own definition with a photo of a store from Del Taco.
Yeah.
It can't say it's like anything else because there is only one Del Taco. There's lots of franchises, obviously. Franchise opportunities are available, but Taco Bell serves some other master. Taco John's, Taco Cabana, all of these guys. But Del Taco is one with the universe as itself and as it should be. Therefore, fries, come and get them. In fact, I have friends who go there just for the fry.
The fries are
You know,
dope. So, So-
I'm going to ask. I'm going to go tomorrow. I tell you guys what. I'll have a report next week. I'm going tomorrow, and I'll get my normal number 9 combo. And of course, she's going to make fun of me for getting the thing. I'm going to ask. Does anybody but me know that you have chips and queso? Maybe I'm the only one that asked for chips and queso because I'm the only one that knows they have chips and queso. Because on the menu, on the thing, it's got a picture of the burrito and their Coke. You know, of course, they got the Coke behind the burrito and all that kind of stuff in their cool picture. And there's French fries. So nobody asked for chips and queso because they don't know. I think that's I think maybe that's it.
So Roland says he only gets fries with when he gets a taco at Del Taco. I'm guessing that means if he gets a burrito or anything else, he goes for the chips and queso. So here's the thing. I'm a man of the times. So I enjoy both. Earlier today, I got tacos with chips and spicy salsa. But if we're doing a Jamarcus or Cali style burrito, well, like if I'm making one at home. We're going to do a little tradition. We're going to do a large batch of fries. Then we're actually going to stuff into the burrito on top of our, sausage. Also some egg and potato and actual potato as well. Besides the fries, so double potato. But I feel like fries have their place. And if you're making your own burrito, just shove some fries in there, and it's a good time.
See, I know Roland wouldn't be upset with us for talking about this because he also is a Del Taco guy. Every time he comes by and picks up their Bulk Secta Blam, we have to go to Del Taco. Well, at least now that, that everything's open and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think it's inevitable now that Del Taco will become a sponsor, and we'll all get free meals for a year. So
I hope so.
At
At least the number's 9 combo. That's what I want.
Yeah, absolutely.
With chips and queso.
Well, there you go. I will say that I do order fries there, and then I get their Del Scorcho packets.
Yes.
And I eat them with the fries, and I usually kill off 20 of them. So the sauce is that good. Fries are mostly.
Brent, we've gone to Del Taco. You and I, when you've been to the office, and we've gone over there. And I don't remember if you. I'm gonna have to. Well, next time you come by, we'll see. Let's see what you get. I'm going to pay very close attention to what you're eating.
See, Roy also says that whenever Silverline visits, we do Del Taco. So I guess it means that we have to find the nearest Del Taco to every convention center that we're going to be attending. So I have to find the one that's closest to Rose City Comic Con.
Well, since they're going to give us free food, then we have to go.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't have any money, so that's what we'll have to
That's
do.
without saying.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, see, they allow us to set up tables outside of Del Taco, so.
Have we thought about Del Taco as a convention venue?
I feel like there's potential.
Not.
That's potential. It's something we'll ponder.
Yes.
Maybe do a show at Del Taco.
Yeah.
Mhm. Sure. Just never eat on camera. That's a rule.
Yeah, I heard that.
You don't want to do that. That alienates the crowd and the fans go running.
Unless you're specifically advertising it as a mukbang, where it's the eating is the focus. So the comics are on the side. The focus is on the shared meal of Del Taco through a virtual platform.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I do like my Del Taco. It's
Yes.
pretty good.
So, Tim, we were going to
This-
launch us into our comic discussion
Yes.
this evening. Did you have
Yes.
something on your mind?
Yes.
Regarding-
So tonight's actual topic is on comic book covers. Yeah. And let me get... Oh, that's the wrong folder. I'm trying to get something into... There it is. Recently, we also this came up because Dean and I are perhaps of two alike a mind. So when he sent over an alternate cover for Wolf Hunter issue number 2, which is now on your screen, as we have shared it almost immediately because we're both very stoked on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Turned into kind of mutual nerding out in the email afterwards.
Well, I'll set up the story. I learned about Wolf Hunter because you sent me an email about it. I was unfamiliar with it and loved the idea, loved the setting, the character. You gave me the character sheets, the whole bit. And it was challenging because being used to, just heavy duty, either spandex action or, superhero action or, just over the top stuff. And this seemed like a very quiet, almost From Russia with Love, James Bond sort of feel, but even more subtle than that, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going, okay, how do I do a whiz-bang, super splashy, action jump off the shelf cover for this? So luckily there's a scene in the book described as a fight on top of a train between two of the characters. So that was the first thing I decided, okay, these two guys are going to be on top of the train. The second part was, what about the action? So I asked Tim about what weapons do the good guy favor, what weapons the bad guy favor. And so he says, well, the bad guy in this issue uses his briefcase, and the good guy's not really that good at fisticuffs and sometimes uses his pistol, but not in this scene. So I'm going, okay. I said, but the bad guy also favors piano wire. So that gave me an idea. But even though it doesn't appear in this particular story. So, long story short, too late. I decided, okay, let's focus on a scene where he's trying to use the piano wire as a garrote and take out the good guy on the top of a moving train. So, for inspiration, I watched the opening to Skyfall, where there's a similar scene with Daniel Craig and the bad guy. And got some ideas on movement, and what that really informed me about was when you're on top of a moving train and you're fighting, you're not just trying to survive the other guy, but you're trying not to fall off. So the idea was to also give it sort of a tension of balance, struggle for survival, but also for balance. So all in all, something that started out as like, how am I going to really amp up the action on this sort of quiet, subtle spy thriller, and it just came alive, and I was like, well, if he doesn't like the fact that I'm using the piano wire, he'll say no, change it back to the briefcase. Luckily you didn't. You like the piano wire, so we stuck with that. But talk a little bit about how the writer feels when an artist takes liberties with the content of the book in terms of being not so specific about an action scene and maybe exaggerating things a bit for drama and impact for the visuals. How do you feel about that?
So I can speak from my own place, and I feel like I am blessed with the correct mindset, if you will. Even though it's art, nothing's correct, everything is up for grabs. Do what you will. Live your best life. But going into comics and even content creation such as live casting, podcasting, streaming, this whole bit, having my first creative experience being in theater and improv, It's all about bouncing off each other and creating that, you know, an idea that's greater than your own.
Sure.
And so whenever I write a script, the synergy, exactly. So when I write a script, I know it's going to be played with and ideally improved upon, because my job is to have the initial idea and then spark the imagination of the artist, who sparks the technical know-how of the inker, who sparks the interest of the colorist, and so on and so forth. So when I write something, I don't try to be hyper-specific unless, you know... I mean, the problem with writing historical fiction, to a point, is, St. Augustine's looks like St. Augustine's. That's... yeah, that's what it is. But if I were to say, you know, two characters fight on top of a train, I can give some vague detail on, like, what the background might look like, what props might be in play. But I'm not going to detail, like, he has his fist here, and the other person is grabbing it at a certain angle. Because if I wanted to be that much of a control freak, I should become an auteur, learn how to draw myself, and just do the entire process start to finish.
Right. I've actually worked with writers who draw detailed thumbnails of what they're looking for. And that can be quite helpful. It can also be challenging because it's good to be true to what the writer wants, but I always try to add, like you were talking about, the synergy to it. And in many cases, the two ideas come together and fuse and become something even better than the intention. Which brings me to a question for Brent. When you're writing screenplays, and this can be applied to, I guess, comic scripts as well, should be. Are you writing in that classic clinical fashion, or are you seeing the movie unfold in your head, almost frame by frame, and are you biting back or holding back that need to put in, more than just medium, establishing shot, close up? Like you want to talk about the lighting, you want to talk, or do you not care about that and you want the AD to do that or the cinematographer?
To tell you the truth, actually putting in any camera angles is considered a rookie mistake.
Right.
You are not supposed to do that because, frankly, it's not your job. And the director would get annoyed at you for saying, what are you directing my movie for me for? So, right. But what you do instead is, like, every film I've ever written, I have a visual of what I'm looking for. Sometimes they hit it and sometimes not. Sometimes they don't do it as well as I think my version was. Sometimes it's better, which is always the coolest. But like, if I want, this is actually what I tell I oversee some writers, and a trick that a screenwriter can use is if, like, for example, you really want to focus on the fact that a door has an antique door handle. You can't write dolly in to, door handle or something, because that's a camera technique. But what you can do is write, he grasps the door handle, which, is very etched through, and, describing it in such a way that it's almost like the director feels like he has to follow your direction or he's changing the story, which, if he's a really smart director or if she's a really smart director, she'll be like, yeah, I'm still going to do whatever I want. In fact, I'll probably fire you and bring in my own writer, in which case you're like, okay, whatever you say. But, you really just kind of have to stay away from anything that resembles camera direction, lighting.
That's interesting,
the more you
because
do that, the more
they know you're rookie. See, it's weird because in comics, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, in comics that's not frowned upon, really. In fact, from the very beginning, writers would tell me, in detail, and if it was a DC script especially, it would be extremely detailed.
Yeah.
Establishing medium. close up, extreme close up. All
Yeah.
that stuff.
That's
Totally in there.
yeah. I write in a hybrid style because I typically do 3 drafts before I send off a manuscript. First draft is very just it's the rough take. The second draft is a little less rough, but that's a Marvel style script. So I'm like, all right, page 1. Here's a paragraph that explains everything that happens here. Page 2. Here's a paragraph that explains everything that happens here. Then my third draft is going to be the DC style script, which is where I also work with the letterer and everyone else involved. The editor gets all of them, and then if he wants to, you can pass them all off to the illustrator. Or sometimes the illustrator might ask me, "Hey, can you send me a blurb for this page?" And I will. But the idea is, we know what each panel comes down to. But there's some moments where AJ's like, "Hey, I kind of want to just vibe on this one thing, so I'm going to change it up a little bit." I'm like, "Sounds great. You're the one that vibes. I'm the one that breaks my mind over do I have enough metaphor? Is it deep enough?" But it's but when I get to that third draft, I do say close up on blah blah blah's face. This is the expression. This is what this eyebrow is doing. But in some cases, you just need that Marvel style script where it's that paragraph that says all right, at some point, someone's going to do this thing, and Spider-Man goes off a page.
Yeah.
And
I found that it's a rough map. It's almost like, you enter the page at the upper left as we learned in graphic design, and then go in a Z formation as you go across and exit the bottom right.
Yep.
But in terms of content, you want to grab the reader at the top left, and then you want as close to a cliffhanger as possible to the bottom right so they keep turning the page.
Yeah.
So as long as I know how it starts and how it ends, I've always just gone crazy with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like the annoying director that Brent was invoking earlier. I would take scripts. This is after I've been working for quite a while. I would just take scripts and go, "No, it'd look cooler if I did this."
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they would go for the cooler look.
Yeah.
Every now and then, you get the OCD writer like, "No, man, that's not what I wrote." And you'd have to go in. Okay, all right.
The only time I'd ever stop an artist really is if I'm like, well, actually, here's what I have this idea for 3 pages down, and we're actually reflecting this. But it's the same.
Sometimes you're trying to get a point across, and so you I really see them. They need to see that doorknob, and it needs to have this symbol on it because later on that means something later. So don't skip over that. Put that in there somewhere. Yeah,
and I will put a little side note there. Especially dealing with the spy stuff, it's not seeing the bad guy's face is very intentional for a while. So that's the note I gave Dean. I'm like, his hair and his hat cover his face as well as his collar, and Dean's like, perfect, got it. AJ gave the same note and notes. I'm like, we'll say we're doing a lot of shadow play in this panel because there's no other way to really do it.
Right.
But
and it's worth noting too that a screenplay is always formatted the same way. It's always in 12-point quarter. Right. It's always got a certain annotation for dialogue, for Riley's, for slug lines. It always looks the same. If it even looks a hair different, you're automatically pegged as a rookie. But comic scripts are different. In a way, you do, especially if you're lucky enough to find an artist that you work really well with. You give as little or as much detail as you want. And that's kind of the beauty of the synergistic relationship is you really are both partners. See, the funny thing in screenwriting is you literally are hired to write a screenplay and then turn around and walk away. And in fact, you can get a bad reputation by sticking around too long. But a writer and an artist in the comic book form work well together all the way through to the end. And it's actually a pretty cool work when you're done.
Yeah, and you're always going to develop different types of relationships too. It's like working with AJ, who has a background in technical vehicle manuals and all this cool stuff. I know that I can reference specific vehicles, or I can nerd out about engine parts, and he's going to be right there too. And he's like, "Oh, I've seen this, or I've researched this." And so, but if I were to and we can talk about specific things with history because he's into World War II history. Whereas if I was writing with, say, Dean or something, I'd probably be a little vague on my description, and then from there, Dean's going to read my mind, like, oh, he's referencing, the thesis of, wow, okay. He's referencing Plutarch. It's very clearly, from this 2-line description, he's referencing this philosopher.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We would be doing the ideological and the philosophical.
Yeah.
We did that earlier. It was hilarious. You were referencing military history maneuvers. So we started bouncing back on that. I wanted to touch on something too, Brent. I'd love to get your take on this. Based on what you just described for everyone about how it works, and sort of the film version versus comic book. There's this dream a lot of comic people have, oh man, if I could only have this made into a movie, it would be so cool. And I used to be that way too. And then I started thinking, no, not really, because here's the thing. In a comic book, like you were talking about the relationship between the writer and the artist, we have total control of this, not because the budget is unlimited, right? So we can do whatever we want, however we want. It's on paper, lives forever. It sparks people's imaginations. If you're doing something, you're going to spend the kind of money to do something live action, then all of a sudden it's not your baby anymore. It's whoever's writing the checks, baby. And so, but then there's this hybrid halfway point that I wanted to talk to you about. Is it the same way, and you may not know the answer to this, I'm just throwing it out there, maybe somebody does. Is it the same way with animated film? Because I've also thought to myself, it would be cool to see an animated feature version of some of these comic books. And I wonder, is it just as brutal as far as, all of a sudden your baby is just somebody else's team's baby and they rip it to shreds and it bears very little resemblance to its original form, even in animated film? Do you know anything about that, Brent, or am I imagining something?
Well, this is what I do know. Any film, animated or otherwise, is going to adhere to a 3-act structure. And frankly, the cool and the negative about comics is they don't have any structure. They have to be coherent. But frankly, I've read a lot of. I love what's his name, Jonathan Hickman. I love his work, but I could never summarize it for you.
I don't know.
And right, but think about any movie you've seen. You can legitimately go out and tell your friend pretty much everything that happened, and it's because each film has a 3-act structure that pretty much resembles almost every other successful film that's out there. And so if a comic book creator wanted to adapt his or her own work to the screen, they would have to know how to do a 3-act structure. And otherwise, the studio would be foolish to hire them. Now, the studio might offer them something like a first look or vetting purposes at the end. And everyone probably wants to keep the comic book creator happy because they're kind of owning the IP. And if the comic creator is smart enough, he's or she is probably going to get an executive producer credit or something like that to be able to still maintain a level of creative control. But in terms of actually, there's a reason why a lot of times you will watch a comic book story that you read in a comic and then you'll see it in a film and it's significantly different. It's because it has to. Mm-hmm. If it looks too much like the comic, odds are it's not hitting the beats that a 3-act structure needs to have, and it will totally wreck the viewer's experience.
One of the most...
It's really weird how it works.
Yes, one of the most dramatic illustrations of what you're talking about is bringing Watchmen to the screen. And just... First of all, you're dealing with Alan Moore, which, that's a whole show. You talk about Alan Moore, it's just crazy. But, genius crazy, but then also crazy.
Yeah.
But here's this long, rambling thing, it's a fine art piece, right? So how do you take that and distill it down into a commercial, enjoyable, 2.5, whatever it was, almost 3 hour film, and arguably, I got to hand it to them. They did a pretty decent job. I still would have wanted the squid, but I understand why they didn't do the squid. It's too weird.
Yeah.
But, it's like you guys pretty much distilled the essence of Watchmen in that film. Thoughts, input?
Yeah.
I saw the Watchmen film not too long ago again, I think because I just got on HBO and I was dying to watch the show. And I will say this, I didn't think it was that great. I was so sad. I love the comic. It's probably, it deserves to, it's the Citizen Kane for me. May never get budged. But, and this will, okay, I think it has like a running time of at least 2.5 hours, maybe longer. The thing is, for me, it felt like it. Okay, see if you can remember. Remember after the comedian has died. Now, this is actually lifted directly from the comics when Dr. Manhattan, Night Owl, or Dan Dreiberg, and Adrian are at his funeral. And each one is watching his body being, put in the ground, and they're remembering back to a key scene that happened in their association, each of them, with the comedian. They almost put it verbatim like that in the film, and it slowed it down like crazy. And my wife doesn't know anything about Watchmen, but she was looking at me and going, "What does this have to do with anything?" It kind of makes it. It's interesting that they have a backstory, but the thing about a movie is to have it really work great. Everything has to have a forward momentum. And in that film, it felt like they were trying to pay some kind of homage to the book by stopping it and filming it verbatim and saying, "See, we read the comics too. Now this is what it looks like in a movie." And it just felt at times like the story wasn't important enough. They had to stop and make sure they get the details right. That's, in my mind, that really just kind of wrecked it a little bit.
Yeah, I think
which
that's
is a bummer. But I'm glad you liked it, Dean.
But,
so that's just my opinion.
But to that point, I think that's also why the MCU is kind of endeared by both Marvel comic readers as well as just moviegoers, because it's designed as a film script. Everything it's 3 acts or 4 acts if you really break down Endgame. They went Shakespearean with it. And they do homages to the comics, but in ways that don't slow down, where you'll have scenes with the Guardians and the Collector, and it is very much, they come in with a goal, and the opposing figure immediately wants to stop their goal or shift it in some way. So it's the classic, how do you overcome this person to give them what we need without, stopping them from helping us in the future. So, very classic scene conflict. And then cut to Howard the Duck in a cube, and all the comic readers go like, "Hey, we know him," and go back to the scene. And that's that same style of, like Bert was saying, you can't just cut to the Collector explaining, "Now here's this duck I got. He's sentient though." Otherwise, you end up killing the scene in most of the movie.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is the beauty of the Marvel movies, yes. Very much written by screenwriters, not written by comic writers.
And, my kudos to Favreau for launching it with his brilliant take on Iron Man, which, who knows what would have happened. Had Iron Man not been successful, I certainly don't think we would have gotten what we got. The chemistry between Favreau, RDJ, as Tony, who did a complete different take from the Tony from the comics, I think, made it more comedic and jokey, and that worked. And so the magic was there. Boom, boom, boom. You get this wonderful universe. DC has had a struggle, with that, but it's interesting how the Nolanverse kind of stands in its own little world. You guys, DC almost has that multiverse by default. Like, oh no, they all exist in the same universe. It's a multiverse, you know.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think? I mean, what did you guys think of adaptation in terms of, you know, Batman is probably one of the most well-known superheroes. How did you guys feel about Nolan's take and what he did with it, and the almost meta effect of Dark Knight and what it did to the whole genre?
I actually liked Dark Knight out of most of the Batman adaptations. I mean, there's every comic will have a different tone depending on who writes it, but there's always that overarching, you know, just what does the visual representation of the character represent? And Batman's always been dark colors, black cowl, brooding on top of a spire, calculating and thinking. And Nolan's felt very much like a detective movie with a guy who's very good at punching people. Compare that to, you know, the polar opposite. You have Clint Eastwood, who was this man in a bodysuit and a diaper, tossing a bomb with Robin like a hot potato. It's not exactly, you know, there have been other Batmans, but as far as, you know, kind of on our same topic of covers representing what's inside the book, not necessarily being the interior of the book, I felt like Nolan's Batmans represented the character of Batman without necessarily being the interior or all the interior that could be done with the character or that's been in the stories before.
What about you, Brent? How did you feel about Nolan's Batman take?
I loved them. Frankly, they were so good they transcended the genre, which anytime any movie does that, it really is amazing. Film noir is something you just don't see as much of anymore, and to see it in a Batman movie, I mean, was amazing. But I kind of agree with Tim. One of the great things about it was it never bothered to answer the question, so where is Superman in the middle of all this? I mean, you weren't there to see that. You were there to see Batman. And the Marvel Universe movies are different. That they're so different because they're building an interconnected universe. But I've actually wondered more than once if Marvel could actually take a note from Nolan and do a new Iron Man trilogy just with Iron Man, not with anyone else wandering around. Because the cool thing is, there's plenty of material, there's plenty of style to go around to actually tell a really compelling set of stories like Nolan did, and not have to rely on any other devices. Just good story, just top-notch talent, every aspect of it firing on all cylinders. I think that would be great. I would love to see that happen. I love the way Endgame summed everything up, but there's a part of me that's like feeling like Marvel, maybe, I know they'll never do this because they love money and, you know, they're in the movies now. Who doesn't? But if they could say, okay, now we're going to go in another direction with all our other properties. They don't need to, you know, the Eternals are here. They don't necessarily need to know who's in the Avengers now. They have their own thing going on. Let's tell some great stories. Just the Eternals.
That's kind of what I'm hoping happens with Shang-Chi coming up, where, like, you know, they might mention, like, oh, this happened, but it's like if they keep it focused on, you know, Madripoor and Kunlun and have it be Shang-Chi coming to terms with his family drama with Mandarin, that would be super dope if it was just, you know, almost like family drama meets Enter the Dragon, where it's just focused on this island and then alternate magical reality. But like you're saying with the Eternals, I haven't seen any of the new promo material for it, but if they just, that's how the Eternals have felt in the comics, especially in the most recent run, where they're kind of like, yeah, the Avengers are cool, but they haven't been dealing with these same issues we have for the past 3,000 years, so we're going to deal with it our own way. So if they were to keep it, like, they were to acknowledge, like, yeah, cool, the Avengers did stuff, we're currently being, you know, the eternal guardians of Earth that you based your mythological gods off of. There's, you know, maybe do a harder focus on Grecian-style politics, make it feel kind of Game of Thrones-y, so where you can break away from the typical genre feel of a superhero movie.
Do you guys think that
Yeah.
the Marvel movies are I think so are so much better than the DC movies is because they're just so much more fun compared to the DC movies? I mean, Aquaman was good because it didn't. I guess it did okay, but it was fun, you know. But you get the stuff like the the Batman movies were really great and stuff, but the Marvel movies are just so much fun. They're everybody. So you think maybe they're sacrificing the story because they're trying to lean on the side of being a little silly and a little more fun? What do y'all think about that?
Well, I'd say
Go ahead.
I'd say I mean that for the mainline, fun certainly helps, but I honestly think that even though I do like Nolan's Batman, I think that Logan was a better take on a darker superhero movie than
Yeah, that's true. Logan was a little different.
I think it's honestly what Brett was saying. They seem to put more focus on the medium they're working in, because even Batman v Superman, it felt like they were straight up like ripping panels out of comics, or like, hey, this is a really cool splash screen. What if we focused on this statue with the false god ink for like what feels like 5 minutes for someone just sitting there? Whereas the Marvel movies always seem like they approach it from, we're going to take the core concept of this existing arc that people like, and then extrapolate what we could do with that in an hour 30.
You think they're kidding them up a little bit to make them so, there's enough of the the essence of the characters in it that those of us that have reading the comics, we get it, but then it's really cool enough where the kids go, yeah, I love Spider-Man, like he's doing cool stuff, but then you watch Batman and all that kind of stuff, and they're like, oh, Batman, that's no fun. That's not any. I don't know.
I think a lot of it is there's a full range of world there. It's kind of like, are you in the mood for a cheeseburger or are you in the mood for a filet mignon? Like, I think Brent was talking about, if you want to go into a movie made for adults and really think about the nature of what would it be like if you were a billionaire and you were fighting crime and the ups and downs of that, and what would law enforcement interact with you, and how would the criminals interact with you, and what would that really do to a city and all that. That's a more mature, I guess, not being pejorative to the Marvel universe at all. I'm just using that as a descriptive. But it's okay. Sometimes you're in the mood for a serious gourmet meal, and then other times you just want to go get a hamburger and fries and enjoy. So I think all of them are valid. It's just kind of, Marvel's decided to do mostly fast food, and DC jumps from fast food to gourmet to, maybe just a shish kebab here on the side, and then you got Tim Burton over here doing pure art form with visuals, and Prince doing the music, and it's a party, and it's like, and there's something. Here's the other reason you're seeing such a disparity of tone, I believe, is that the DC heroes are much more iconic, which means they're much more open to interpretation. The Marvel heroes are very specific to the personalities and places where they belong. It's New York City, it's Tony Stark, it's it's who they are, it's Xavier, it's Wolverine, it's but Batman is just, you could do 10 different directors doing 10 different Batmans, and they would all work if they stayed true to the core. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that it's also got something to do with the money. These movies are expensive to make, right? Yeah. So if they keep making these DC movies that just aren't making any money, and they're going, well, we need to kind of make it a little less dark and a little more poppy, are they gonna do that? Like the earlier Batman movies were a little more silly.
I think they'll go back and forth, but you know, the Nolanverse made a lot of money.
Yeah, it did. It did.
A lot of money for DC, and Nolan is still tied in. I mean, his tone is the reason that they're not so neon color glow, you know, and you know, people make fun of that, but it's like, well, it's a different take. I think you could still go in and do playful, fun stuff at DC, and you could do serious stuff at Marvel. Like I think Logan is a good example of that. Side note: James Mangold, who directed Logan, is going to be directing the next Indiana Jones movie, which I think is kind of cool. But anyway, we'll see if that works. But you know what I mean? It's just kind of like everybody's got different tastes, but you got all kinds of restaurants to go to, you know, and you want to go get a hamburger and fries, or you want to go get a nice gourmet ribeye steak. I mean, both are great. It's just what you're in the mood for. Marvel is hitting on all cylinders for all the reasons you guys described. But I don't think DC should copy Marvel. I think that's what I'm going to. I think they should stay true to whatever vision. If it's Nolan anchored, then stick with that. Because like I say, that Dark Knight trilogy made a whole lot of money. It's very popular. It's still, because I mean, here it is. What are we? 10 years out from almost 10 years out from Dark Knight Rises, and people still consider those films to be benchmark films. Wouldn't you say, Brent?
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is that they were not. I mean, they skewed dark. Like the whole pencil scene. Can you imagine that in a Marvel movie?
No,
no way.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no way.
That is not for the kids.
No.
And yet the kids loved that movie. I mean, it made a ton of money. And I actually thought Rises was pretty darn good too. Maybe not quite as good, but it was pretty good. I think the problem was that the DCU never felt like it had a unifying vision. You were kind of talking about that, Dean. Marvel, even there are entries in the Marvel universe that aren't the movies that aren't as good as others, and yet you're never finding that you're criticizing it too hard, because it almost feels like you're criticizing one part of a large movie, but you like all the other parts. You know what I mean? So even if you're saying Captain Marvel didn't do this or that, you're thinking, oh, but I mean, that does not scare me away from the MCU, because I'm definitely going to the next movie. I mean, that did not happen overnight, and it did not happen in a void. I mean, that was incredibly calculated, and the fact that they did it so well still blows my mind. They didn't have nearly that amount of prescience, frankly, when they were putting together the DCU. It started with Man of Steel, a movie that just frankly wasn't that great, which still to this day frustrates me because I love Superman. And you noticed when Batman versus Superman came out, I mean, it had Batman, it had Superman. Why didn't it work?
Because
why is everyone still going on and on about the Martha thing?
Well, it's like
the reason is it just wasn't that good.
Yeah, you have
you can say, Tim.
You have the linchpin of Captain America: Civil War, which is Cap knows a secret about what his best friend did that ruined Tony's life, and Tony resents him for not being honest, not being a good friend. The linchpin of Batman vs Superman is their mother's share of first name. It's
yeah.
That's tough to get over. That's really hard.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I mean, if you think about it, the screenwriter is probably still sitting there shaking his head going, why did everybody care so much? I mean, it's just a thing. We needed something to get them on the same page. Why did everyone come down
It was
so hard
supposed
on
to
me?
bring them together, and you guys hated it.
That
right. But in the overall, the big general sense, they weren't on the same page. And all the MCU movies are on the same page. So even if something doesn't work well enough, The rest of it does, and you willing to give them a break. Nobody was willing to give BVS a break. They, in fact, you could tell they were sharpening their knives before the movie was even done. It was a train wreck. It was sad to watch.
It was.
So-
Part of it was, and this may not have been the creator's decision, it was probably the producer's decisions. They saw how great the Marvel U was coming together, and they're like, we
gotta
need
do
to
that.
do something really, really cool. Isn't there like a comic out there where, I don't know, Batman fights Superman? Yeah, it's but it's an alternate future thing. That's okay. We'll just take that basic idea and we'll somehow shoehorn it in and force it into what. And that's the problem is they got so scared because they were behind Marvel, right? They didn't have time to do the slow build like Marvel.
Yeah.
They didn't plan it well. So they just grabbed for what's our most successful graphic novel where Batman and Superman. Oh, look, this one. Yeah. Grab it off. It's like, no, y'all, no. Wait, build it slowly. And then as far as why Man of Steel didn't work, David Goyer should never write Superman. You need an optimistic, like, bright and shiny Captain America style screenwriter to write Superman. If the team that made Captain America the First Avenger had made Superman, it would have been great because they understand the tone of the Boy Scout superhero. If you don't understand the tone of the Boy Scout superhero, you shouldn't make a Superman movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's
You should make the Punisher or make Dark Batman movie. Or
if they were,
make sort of,
if David Goyer was doing Infinite Justice,
David Goyer.
if David Goyer was doing Injustice with totalitarian Superman, perfect. But not. And that's not to say you can't have Boy Scouts in a darker setting, but they need to be they're like, I will be the last beacon of hope if I die, so help me.
Yeah, and it actually would have been a fantastic contrast, in the wake of the Nolan verse and the tone, right? To come in with the tone of Captain America the First Avenger and do a bright, shiny, sunrise Boy Scout Superman movie, right? With the whole like feel good from the 1979 version, that feeling, with the John Williams style fanfare music, and you're just like, yes, because that's what you need. You need that as a foil to Batman. But no, they were like, well, Batman's dark and everything, so we should probably make him dark. I was like, no. Don't make Superman dark.
Yeah,
Superman's not
the sad
dark.
thing is, and I know you're totally right. Yeah, but the thing is, what I wish they had done is they had, like, Zack Snyder was going on record saying, yeah, we need to darken Superman. That kind of character doesn't resonate with audiences today. That's utter crap. I mean, audiences love a well-told story, and Superman is, a lot of people say he's not interesting because he has all these powers. Well, what would it be like to have all those powers? If you got that story into the hands of a really seasoned, mature screenwriter who understood nuance and understand context, they could do great. I mean, can you imagine what it would be like to be Superman in a dark world and not be dark himself?
Yeah.
I mean, the stories are limitless.
Well,
they could have totally done that, but instead they were like, no, we can make Superman dark. It's sad. But something I was going to say too, Dean, and then I actually have to go, is we're totally right about Batman versus Superman. Can you imagine if the second Iron Man movie had been called Iron Man versus Captain America, and Captain America hadn't had any movies before then? It would have failed because people would have been like, well, I guess it's cool and they fight stuff. But they didn't. They had Iron Man 2, then they got together, then they had Captain America had his own movie, then they had the Avengers, and they had a second Avengers. Then they had this idea that maybe they weren't getting along years later. And people, like, I had people coming to me and saying, Captain America Civil War genuinely disturbed me because they were friends. They shouldn't be fighting. They should be getting along. And then there's Batman versus Superman, and you're like, I think somebody thought it would be cool I mean, that was the only reasoning they had when they went into that movie.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah. And
Having said that, I have to go. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, we hate to see you go, Brent. Enjoyed it.
Finish your thought.
I was gonna say, I for me, honestly, if they,
Yeah, I know, man. I know.
it could have saved, but BVS just a little bit for me if they'd given them just something a little more than our mother sure for saying. Like if they'd, like if Devon's like, I was like just trying to beat the guy with Superman. He's like, "You're not a god," and Superman's like, "No, but a god is coming if you had a vision of Darkseid or something," and just let Batman know that there's a greater threat, because that's what Batman is about, is, he's the Dark Knight. He's the one who stands on the wall when no one else will. So he's like, hey man, you're abandoning the wall by going after me. Then Batman has a crisis of conscience, essentially.
Yeah. They should just hire us to redo it and then invent a time machine. But I don't think they're going to do that.
That's what he, Warner Brothers, just sell us DC. It'd be fine.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go. I'll see you next week.
See you next
See ya.
week.
Brent, take it easy, man. So, here's the thing, though. They can still save the DCU, regardless of Wonder Woman 1984. They can still save
Yeah.
the DCU. All they have to do is make a really good Superman movie
Yeah.
where you walk out with the same feeling you had after Captain America, because they're similar characters, and contrast the need for the optimistic Boy Scout to balance the cynical Batman, right? Because in the comics, they've been together. World's Finest, for crying out loud, for so long. The whole theme of those books is, we need them both. We need the cynical realist mixed with the optimistic Boy Scout. We need both sides of that coin to make it work. And, Batman on many occasions, Bruce Wayne has said, Clark, you're the best of us. You're what we all wish we could be, and to have that sort of tone. And I don't remember whether in the Marvel certainly not in the films, but certainly that's been said of Cap as well, that, he is that beacon of, hope and optimism, and we're better than this. We can be better than this. Let's shoot for that and be that. There's a need for that. I think we've been in this shadow of anti-heroes for a long time, because you got to remember, Dark Knight Returns was like 1987. Watchmen, that's like 86, 87. That's a long time to be, tearing down the heroes. They need to have a nice balance. I think that's another place the Marvel U has done a very good job. I think they've got a nice balance of optimistic folks and cynical folks. Don't you think, Tim?
That's also some of the characters I feel like are because going darker is what kind of saved Marvel in the '98 reboot, but they recognize that they're meta of that choice. We're like, all right, we're going to reboot older comics because we're not making money, and we're going to start off with a lot of action, a lot of violence, because that'll get people interested. And they're like, okay, now how does everyone work on recovering from this? And you get stuff like what I think is really one of my favorite takes on Eddie Brock as Venom is the anti-hero trying to become a Boy Scout. We're saying, like, I have killed some people, but I have a kid now. My girlfriend is missing. Like, I don't want to be a killer. I want to be the strong hero that everyone can look to and know that I'll keep them safe. And so that's his internal conflict, is the fact that he's really good at killing people, but he doesn't want to be. And I think it makes an interesting character.
That's good.
Yeah. And when they do kind of do weird, darker takes on things, so you got Secret Empire, where they had Hydra Cap, and the rest of the Avengers reacted the way the audience did, which I think is very smart, where everyone's like, no, this isn't Cap, this can't be Cap, and discover it's not. But you have those moments where everyone's like, we're supposed to be not as good as you, why are you this way? So then it elevates everyone else to become better than they were beforehand.
I think there's a character in the Marvel U that was popular a few years ago and may become popular again, whose internal conflict is what you just described, Secret Empire address, and it's Daredevil. That he embodies the struggle to be, the open-hearted defender of the defenseless as an attorney by day, and then going out and beating the crap out of the bad guys at night, right? And how does he reconcile that with his religious affiliation, with his conscience, and also there's a lot of depth to the character, and they did touch on a lot of that, I thought, in the TV series.
Yeah.
Did you guys like Daredevil? Tommy, did you like Daredevil?
I saw part of the first episode, and that is all that I watched. It's not because I didn't want to; I just never got back to watching it.
Okay.
Real quick from Facebook, Cassisi says, "I'm not sure that Superman will be able to do it as a movie." I'm assuming it means save the DCU. I actually think people gravitate to the darkness because for some reason people link darkness to reality. I do think comedy can save them. Then equal DC. Love Daredevil. Lots of notes there. But yeah, I do think that for people now, I think just because of, even if you look at like recent events, the news is always going to show you the darkest stuff because it drives, your it's biological fear to preserve yourself, and so because you get oversaturated on that, now people see dark content, they think, oh, that's like the current news cycle, so it does kind of resonate more. But I think what kind of like we're talking about, like Superman needs to be the shining hope in the darkness. That's why a lot of people like Eddard Stark from Game of Thrones. You have Westeros, this terrible, like corrupt, broken place, and he's the one guy who's saying like, law and honor have a place, and I'll be the one to uphold it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And thinking that it was going to stick.
That
if you did the right thing, then things would be done right. And you see what happens.
Well, here's another good example that's outside of comics, really, but the ideology is still there. The cynical world that Luke Skywalker steps into, right? And the Jedi are gone. Everything's really materialistic and crushed by the Empire. No one really has any. There's this ragtag resistance, and there's not a whole lot going on. And they're trying, but they're getting their rear ends handed to them all the time. And here comes this little farm boy that still believes in being a knight of King Arthur from days past, and he wants to, make everything right. And you're right there with him because of the contrast of the dark surroundings. So I think, again, if you approach a Superman movie or even a Daredevil movie, if you jump back to Marvel, with that idea of, I know it seems impossible, but I don't care that it seems impossible. I'm going to do this anyway. Then all of a sudden, your character becomes this fish out of water, where everybody around him like, dude, you're an idealistic idiot. What are you doing, man? Just make money and live, like that. And he said, no, I want to be a Jedi. I want to do the right thing. I want to save the innocent, and I want to stand for honor and do what's right. And it was also demonstrated in westerns in years past. The Gary Cooper style standalone western. The town's gone totally corrupt, and he's the last good sheriff, and everybody's telling him, leave town, dude, leave town. These guys are going to eat your lunch. They're going to burn the town to the ground. You get out while the going's good. You just got married. Don't stay here and die. What are you dying for? You've been a sheriff long enough. No, he's going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And if you've ever watched High Noon, it's a study in that, what I call the defiant idealism of hope, in the darkness. So again, I think humor needs to be there, but also that sort of almost stubborn hopefulness would be great to feature with Clark Kent. I think it would be great, Yeah. And even to have Batman in the story and be like, dude, I don't, what you're just like, so, come on, get real. And he'd be like, no, this is me. This is who I am. And after a while, I think Bruce would be like, I wish I could be a little bit more like that, because I'm just down in the shadows all the time. I need to go see I need to go see my shrink. I gotta, But then all of a sudden, Clark becomes this beacon, like you say. But the internal struggle of Wolverine and Logan, right? Or not a great movie, but Logan in Wolverine, where Wolverine Origins, right? Where kind of see, like, he's tired of all the killing. He just wants to live a normal life. He wants to live in a cabin in the woods with his girlfriend and live happily ever after. And it's the Godfather story, right? It's like pulled back in because he has to be, and he has to come back and do what he has to do. So he's got an internal struggle too, which could be very interesting if they explore, which they did in Logan.
Yeah. That's also why I think a lot of people really like the first John Wick. John Wicks 2 and 3 are like, you watch them if you're a martial artist because it's martial art candy. But John Wick 1, but John Wick 1 was the story of the guy who's he has an external villain, but the real conflict is the fact that he's tired of it. Like it's like he's a man who can kill everyone and no one can kill him, but he just wants to stay at home with his dog.
He just wants a normal, a semi-normal life, and that was there was a pathos to that. There was an internal struggle to that, and then you got all the cool action shoot 'em up stuff along with it. So, and then it got kind of crazy. By the time you get to 3, you're like, okay, it's just, this is a demo reel for gun fu and great martial arts. So go for it, guys.
It's how Keanu Reeves is staving off old age.
And he's doing a great
watched
job.
it again the other day. That third one. What is that? The one where when they were in that that storage museum thing, and they were just throwing the people up against the glass displays, and they would just pull out a knife and stick you in.
Oh yeah, they're in that. They have all the.
That was so fun.
Yeah,
that was so fun.
It was just so fun. It was so over the top,
Oh
but fun. Fun. I don't know where do you go?
I don't know about you guys, but that's the way I thought.
Yeah. I enjoyed John Wick. I thought the internal conflict of 1, like Tim said, is really what holds it together. What do you think they're going to do with Moon Knight as we get back to comics to TV now?
Yeah.
Are they going to really play up the crazy part? Are they going to? I mean,
they confirmed that it's Mark Spector Moon Knight, so I would assume that it would start with him realizing that Khonshu is real, not real, and that he's in an asylum. But I don't know how deep they're going to get into the weird metaphysical stuff of that, where you realize that Mark Spector is so unhinged that he has actually seen an alternate reality that grants him powers greater than the other Avengers. It's just the weird eldritch elements of it, where the only true knowledge is insanity. But
it's very odd.
Yeah,
I think you're going to run into problems if all the cool action is in Mark Spector's head.
Yeah,
you're gonna run into problems because people want that to be real.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to see something more like. Shortly after that one, after Jeff Lemire took over a little bit and was like, we're going to rebrand Moon Knight as not just D-list Batman, and made Moon Knight what it is now. Before you get to Super Nuts, Moon Knight single-handedly kills all the Avengers, fights Van Helsing, and comes back to reality. But I think they're going to do something more where it's he's trying to cope with the fact that he understands that he's living in almost like a split reality, but he's still trying to deal with these mid-tier level threats, people who are working for other cults or these the big pharmaceuticals that now he has close experience with that are actually doing pretty inhumane experiments, and so. Which I think either one of those would work well for a TV show. Maybe combining the two into, But I think it's going to be a little more. I think they are going to hardboil it a little bit, maybe make it feel a bit kind of like Legion. But even Legion does a lot of. It's a lot of cerebral, but it's not all cerebral, like you're saying. I mean, that's the reason why I think they didn't do Endgame the way they dealt with Thanos in the comics, where 13-year-old Nova throws him in the cancer dimension, because no one would be like, why is this teenager throwing him into space tumors?
Yeah, back to the space squid being completely out of left field, like everybody go, huh?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Anyone who didn't read like the original Watchmen, and if they'd have done the space squid in the movie, it would have been like, what?
I mean, and that's also the thing with comics. We get so trained to reading in between the panels because that's where the movement happens. So when we're kind of almost trained our ways to accept what might be considered bad writing in prose, where it's the unexpected comes in out of nowhere, just kind of jumps on you. But you've trained yourself to interpret that there was action building leading up into this. Whereas, you know, if you're to do that on a screen, you're like, where was the last 5 minutes of showing this happening? Yeah.
Where do you see the MCU going now in terms of direction? I mean, because it doesn't it feel like a large expanded novel series is now ended, and now we're gonna start something else.
Well,
now they got to get a lot of new actors. And
yeah,
stuff, right.
And that's honestly what I think. The Brent was talking about. What I hope they do is if they almost kind of like refocus it back down, because if they kept it the same style of big team action set pieces, like we had built into, it's just going to burn down because it's not going to feel like they're telling new stories. It's going to be like it's the same story but with different people and different CGI. But if they were to slow it back down, like, okay, here's Shang-Chi doing a kung fu drama with family issues. That'd be awesome. Eternals, all right, here's this cool mythological piece with a lot of politicking. Awesome. And then eventually build into stuff again. But I don't think they can stick with big world-ending events and big team fights, because otherwise we're going to be like, okay, cool, I saw this for the last 4 years, but I had more time to develop the affection for characters that I needed. Otherwise they're going to pull the BVS or the Justice League, where it's I know none of these people and I don't care if they live or die because I don't know what their motives are.
Do you think with the Disney Plus stuff that they're doing a good job at trying to bring in, like we're redoing, the Falcon is now Captain America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I spoil anything? I guess you guys watched the...
It's been 2 weeks. That's fine.
Yeah. So, so the next whatever Captain America movie, apparently he's going to be Captain America or some version of Captain America. And then you've got, I guess we've got the...
Loki actually just started, so I need to watch that tonight.
And then we started up a new Spider-Man that's working pretty good, so we're going to be running with him for a while. I guess the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, they're working on filming that new movie now.
Yep.
So they're going to continue with. So they're still, and don't we still have? I forgot what his name was. The guy doing Thor, and he's still doing.
Yes. So
Thor?
He's still doing.
We still got him.
They're not. They're doing Thor, Love and Thunder, which I think is going to feature him a little bit, but I believe that's going to be as we start going into
Jane
Foster and Helena.
Okay.
And which is actually interesting because that might be ways to get more kind of Norse mythology influence as we go into like the Valkyrie and the Shield Maidens and all that fun stuff. But
yeah. I mean, Marvel's done a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys that they've got playing the characters and stuff. They've hit gold, right? So, but those guys aren't going to want to keep doing these guys.
No, and I think honestly Kevin Feige, even though he's the man behind the scenes, he's the bread and butter of the cinematic universe. I think he knows that they can't keep telling the same thing over and over again, because the behind the scenes going into Endgame was when everyone got the script of Endgame, they also got contracts that were not renewed. So they said, like, you can come back if you want to. If not, you can leave, and that's fine. Because they knew they were going to start with new people, and a bunch of people took that out and said, like, all right, I'm going to work on other stuff in my career now. A couple other people stayed on. Chris Hemsworth decided he wanted to do Thor with the next Guardians, and so that's why they wrote him leaving with Star-Lord, which that'll be fun. But so I think they are going to kind of slim things back down a bit, but with the people who stayed on, they're going to see.
And then we got Cumberbatch doing another Doctor Strange, so that's going to work out. It's fairly new, right? I mean, they brought him in at a good time where he's still, you know.
I think for a lot of people,
I mean, you think that he's been around forever, but he's been in one movie and then, you know, and so he hadn't been around for very, very long playing that character. So but he's still good.
Yeah, and I think what they're going to do with the people who are sticking around is they're going to get new development on internal conflict. Because if you think about it, they did the that's a kind of a newer run, but they did Thor's big arc that got people back in love with him, which was Odin's son, or became Thor the Unworthy for a while, took up the axe and became the Odin's son, and then eventually re-earned his place as Thor again, only to give it up to Jamie Foster because he realized that.
Oh man, you know what? I'm sorry. Keep going.
Okay.
I'm going to write this down.
Sure. He's got a note. So we got to figure out what new is driving him. Otherwise, he's going to be kind of a dead character. Star-Lord's love issues are going to be drama for him. So that one is baked in a little more than most of the others.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, he was actually kind of interesting because he was done almost in the style of a Greek epic where his internal conflict gets resolved in the first two acts, and he's like, all right, I am understanding, and I have ascended to being a hero. Now I need to understand what exactly that sacrifice means to me, so he has to internalize it, and that's what the third act is. So he needs something new to develop and something to cause him to either doubt himself or break his character arc a little bit just to give him some new conflict to give him room to grow again. So I think a lot of these characters are going to have to spend time focused down again just to start new arcs of progression that will lead into whatever their big events are, which I'm hoping we know the bad guy for the next Ant-Man is going to be Kang the Conqueror, and I don't want Kang the Conqueror to be a one-off because he's such a fun and weird character. Yeah. Also, he's the only guy to come as close as Galactus to actually destroying Earth, I think, besides now Null. So I think if they were to do some fun timey-wimey stuff with the multiverse and Kang the Conqueror for like the next major arc, I'd be down.
Yeah, I caught that last Ant-Man movie again just the other day too, and I forgot that was right at the beginning of, I think I may have mentioned this an episode or two ago. Yeah, right. Right where the snapping, he got stuck in the thing, and it's like, my wife and I were watching it. We forgot about that, and we were like, "Well, I almost said a bad word." We were like, "Oh, fart!" It's like, "Oh no, we forgot about that. That's what happened. Oh no!" It's like, "Oh, poor guy." Didn't realize what happened. No, what I was going to say a while ago. I don't know if you guys avoided Facebook today. So apparently Loki's out, the first episode.
Yes.
So I hadn't seen it yet.
I think we're trying to watch that tonight. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. So I mean, we got that guy playing, Aiden. He's been in the Thor movies, but he's, this is basically brand new, right?
Well, it's brand new content, but he's also the villain in the first Avengers movie. But Owen Wilson is going to be the Time Lawyer.
Yeah, I know, that's funny.
But
that so
I think
I hope it's good.
I think also now with the TV show, like we're talking about, like there are some things that are so weird in comics that you can't really sell on a screen as well. But I think with the TV shows, they're giving them room to, like, it's not the main property. We can do fun stuff like WandaVision. We can do a fun take on Flag Smasher. I think doing Loki with the Agency of Time is going to be. Yeah. That's fun.
Here's what's missing though. Spider-Man being older and not so much dealing with teenage problems anymore, but dealing with his arguably one of the coolest rogues galleries of any comic book universe. They need to get back to Spider-Man just being Spider-Man, not interacting with everybody else.
Yeah.
Kids, yeah. I mean, wasn't Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse that the actual Peter Parker Spider-Man wasn't he good. That was
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I like that the guy playing the Spider-Man in the movies
Yeah.
and stuff. But then
I don't-
Spider-Verse came out, and you go, that Spider-Man.
That's
I
Spider-Man.
love
right.
that Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That was the best Spider-Man yet. That guy.
What I'm wanting to see is, number one, Spider-Man is the flagship character of Marvel. Whether they want to
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so.
own up to that or not, they've got to come back to Spider-Man, and they've got to do Spider-Man when he's in college, and when things have moved a little bit, and maybe even go with the black suit without spending a lot of time dealing with Venom. You can tease Venom for later on, but just do Spider-Man being Spider-Man and doing his things, because his Rogues Gallery is amazing, and they still have to do that, and they still have to come back, because it's been long enough since the Sam Raimi trilogy now that they can go back and re-examine, Goblin and
Yeah.
all those characters.
I know that they're talking about. They haven't confirmed too much cast for Spider-Man No Way Home, which is the third movie coming out this year, but I know Alfred Molina is coming back as Doc Ock. And they also haven't confirmed that any main staple other MCU people are going to come back. So it's looking like it may just be Tom Holland as Spider-Man with other member with the Sinister Six, because I think they also confirmed a Goblin and also Kraven.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so
Kraven's a good one.
yeah, so I think that'll be. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
The other character that no one really talks about that would make them so much money, it would just be ridiculous. And here's how you go in and tell the Fantastic Four story that everyone's been waiting to see.
Wouldn't it be great to have a good Fantastic Four?
Oh my gosh, it would.
Here's how you do it. You make it about Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
Basically, you do Doctor Doom doing his thing. You have a plot where he's the central character, and then from his perspective, he meets Reed and Susan.
Some troublemakers trying to stop him. That ain't.
And basically, you go through the storyline of why he is how he is, and instead of going the cardboard version of Doctor Doom that everyone is aware of, really go the Anakin turning into Darth Vader story. Tell the transformation of Victor from Victor, the gypsy boy who lost his mom and all that, to the ruler of Latveria. Tell that story and then bring the Fantastic Four in through his story.
Yeah.
I think that would be a tremendous. I think you've got 3 movies there. If they did that,
I think it's also why people liked. We talked about this before, but every character that is a principal character has to have an ideology. The only difference is that if they're a villain, their ideology is in some way flawed, and that causes them to make questionable choices. You have Thanos, who he's just trying to save people from extinction. He's like,
he was doing a good job.
He's like, we live in a broken world, and I need to do something to make sure that people can keep on living. And so, it causes pretty terrible things, but you're like, people liked him because, in a way, he made his own twisted kind of sense. So,
it's the same. If I may throw in one last reference to Watchmen, Ozymandias. Adrian's mistake is his hubris to, name himself the arbiter of who lives and who dies.
Yeah.
Well, who's worth saving and who's not. So, but again, the same hubris that Thanos did and all of that. It's that ultimate power corrupts.
Yeah.
Absolutely not allowing the human race to do what the human race does and to grow naturally on its own. But again, with Doom, you basically have the template for Vader. Vader is arguably one of the most famous characters in pop culture, and he borrows almost everything from Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
And Doctor Doom is also a sorcerer as well as a genius.
Yeah, he starts out because he wants to rescue his mom from Mephisto. So
yes,
if they were to kind of expand that, or he's through contacting his mom, he realizes that people's immortal soul is real, and there is a place of eternal suffering. So he begins this master plan. He's like, I'm trying to save your souls by doing these very dark, weird magics.
There was a wonderful graphic novel where Doctor Strange and Victor team up to go down to rescue his mom.
Yeah.
And that would make it cool. I mean, if you wanted to really take down a weird door, right?
Yeah.
Bring in Victor that way.
Yeah.
But he's a compelling villain in that it's easy to be sympathetic, even though, and he's funny. The way he's written is funny because the level of arrogance is hilarious. The way he interacts with lower level people, like just average people, is like, speak to me again and you'll die.
Yeah.
That kind of humor where it's like, wow.
Right. Well, yeah.
Don't piss off Victor.
Yeah. I bring them Mephisto because we got some Mephisto teases with WandaVision and also Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. It kind of, you have room to play there, but what also makes sense if we were to do something with Kang the Conqueror Galactus, which Doom has done in the comics, where he's coming to essentially save the day. He just looks at him, he's like, "You're all idiots. You're doing this entirely wrong. Give me total power, and I'll save you."
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah. There's some humor in the I don't know, the certainty they have about themselves and their agenda, and just the idea that. Why, and anyone who refers to themselves in the third person is hilarious.
Right.
To begin with.
Especially when your name is Doom.
Right. I know, right? So, I mean, I think if you've got a good screenwriter and a good director, you could really make that character the Vader of the Marvel U, which is weird to say now because Vader is part of the Marvel U.
That's true.
In a real way.
Oh, I wonder if they'll ever, with the amount of properties they have, I wonder if at some point in their Marvel What If they do a Star Wars or Disney Princess crossover.
Well, I've always wanted the ultimate crossover. Everybody always is like, man, the DC Marvel crossover where the heroes all fought each other and how cool was that? Captain America versus Batman and da-da-da and this and that and the other. I always wanted to see Doctor Doom and Batman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because again, you got geniuses at tech. Doom would have a little edge with his sorcery. Batman would have a little edge with his physical superiority and his deductive maybe powers. But wow, what a great face-off that would be.
Yeah.
Right.
That'd be awesome.
So, yeah, it would be. Tommy, who would you like to see, man? DC versus Marvel, go.
I have no idea. I really,
Thor versus the Hulk.
Versus the Hulk. No. A character that I always thought would be cool to see on film would have been Captain Atom. I always liked Captain Atom for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that is supposed to be coming, as far as I know.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know. Rock has been confirmed as Black Adam for the longest time. He's on his contract. What I would love to see would actually be a pair from each side. So from Marvel side, you would have Doctor Strange and Thor, and then on the DC side, you have Shazam and Doctor Fate.
Oh, nice use of Doctor Fate. A very rarely used character. Which brings me to Constantine.
Oh yeah. Again,
how cool would that be as a TV series if you went noir, and you shot it in England and you did kind of a Penny Dreadful.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Take it out of that corner. I think Constantine's got a lot of legs if you did that.
Absolutely. And we are supposed to be getting a new Constantine as well.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Very nice.
What do y'all think because of all this Marvel stuff going on, and we've been talking about Avengers and all that kind of stuff. What are they going to do with all the X-Men stuff? Have we just, they just put it on a shelf for now?
So the last thing we got that was actually confirmed besides fan speculation when they brought in the Fox Quicksilver in WandaVision was after they bought the rights. they had said that they do plan on reintroducing the X-Men into the MCU, but it would take several years because as they have it planned now, they're doing this current phase. And I said the next phase, it's a possibility. But I mean, it's that same thing where you build to the medium where like in comics you write to the thing where you write to knowing that there's action moving between the panels. In film and stuff, you write to knowing that you need to show things. And so,
I kind of meant, in your opinion, do they start over or start again? Do they try to recast everybody? Do they made a whole boatload of those movies, so those guys probably don't want to do them anymore.
That's the thing is like for some of them they have a better taste in their mouth because apparently Fox is not the best studio to work with. And others, may be a while before they get back to it. Hugh Jackman said he'd be willing to come back to Wolverine if it was an MCU film. So maybe Hugh Jackman because he never ages. But because CC says do not recast, please. I think they recast some, maybe not others. But I almost feel like you do have to do a Secret World type thing, like how they introduced the Inhumans to the Marvel Comics, where, I mean, they were for being such an important civilization, being introduced in '98 was very strange. Like, they've been living under the ocean for like the past 100 years, it's fine. So either thing, like Xavier's been doing the mind bubble, where he's like, I've just been erasing mutants from everyone's mind collectively, and everyone has huge issues with that because obviously they would. Or if they were to do something like a reverse House of M, where Wanda says, okay, mutants, and then everyone blinks into existence.
I think you have to do something dramatic like that because inevitably you're gonna reboot the X-Men. I mean, we're 20 years past X-Men 1.
Because 60 says, please do recast, don't keep them. So
yes,
yeah.
I mean, it would be fantastic to see, new younger actors take a stab at, Wolverine and here's the other thing too is you've got all these different places you can go now. Like spend some time in Madripoor with Wolvie and Jubilee, and deal with what's going on there, and then go really crazy and have Xavier. Get married to the Shi'ar princess.
Yeah.
Lilandra? Is it Lilandra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just do some really just wild stuff with it. And like you said, I think Tim, you had a real good handle on it that let's go internal with it. We've done the big team up against the big baddie. Now let's let everybody have their own microcosm adventure.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, I hope they do that with Spidey.
Yeah.
Yeah. You started talking about, I like him as Spider-Man, but let's. He might be too. He could do college Spider-Man-y stuff.
I guess.
Yeah.
College,
I mean, he could sure. I was talking more in terms of, whoever they cast, just. Go for Spider-Man getting out of the discovering being Spider-Man phase.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into like
high school scenario stuff.
Let's get into because he has some really cool story arcs and adventures and just Spider-Man's been around a lot longer than just hey, I'm in high school and I can climb walls. Isn't that cool? It's like there's a lot more to the Spider-Man mythology.
Yeah.
So grow him up. And let's get into like the black suit for a while.
Yeah, I think they also the way they have him set up with his relationship with Tony Stark going into movies. I would be interested to see if they did him if either they did his college years or they revamp his college years into the next movie. If they were to go into him starting Parker Industries and like what's it like for him being a very young CEO. With a lot of technical know-how and weird tech, trying to handle being a superhero, run a business, and then at the same time, shortly thereafter, starting a family, because that was some of my favorite things where Spider-Man essentially is breaking his mind, asking Captain America, like, how do you live your life and do all this?
Well, that's an interesting take too. The problem with that is you inevitably head toward Superior Spider-Man, and Octane Spider, and all that. And I was talking more in that realm of bring in Craven and bring in, all these the coolest rogues gallery. I mean, just the crazy Morbius. And,
my Spider-Man still works for the Daily Bugle taking pictures. That's
and he's
rather
always
than
broke.
being the tech the tech engineer guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather him not be Tony Stark too. I'd rather him be the struggling.
I never liked that those storylines.
Right. I like him struggling and broke, and he's got to get pictures, and he's being yelled at by everybody, and yet he still always does the right thing, kind of a thing. Because that was the appeal of Spidey, was he was like, I want to be like Cap, only I'm kind of bumbly-fumbly. Even though I'm a genius, I'm kind of bumbly-fumbly, but I really want to be cool like Cap, because Cap is cool. That's how the comics work.
Yeah, my Spider-Man's Amazing Spider-Man. That's,
I know you...
We're getting a little bit of the leg on the chat there.
I think people, because he has to make these decisions. Are we good?
I think we're caught up.
Okay. Awesome. No, I was just saying, Spider-Man should be the anchor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I don't feel like he is, and I don't mind that it happened like it happened.
Right.
But, with sort of RDJ being the anchor, but I think now that's been around long enough, it's sort of matured and come to its conclusion. So you have a chance here to make Spider-Man the flagship of Marvel again, and I think they should do it. Because he's there. I mean, it's there for he's there for a reason.
Is Iron Man the flagship because of the actor playing Iron Man? So is Tom, whatever his name is he strong enough of an actor? Ooh, I'd be freaking out again.
I don't know.
Is he strong enough to be that guy? Because
I don't know if he is, because they wrote him as a sort of, I want to be like Tony Stark and be in the Avengers, which is a different Spider-Man than the Sam Raimi take of, I just want to be the best Spider-Man because Uncle Ben died and I could have done something about that and I didn't. So, there's guilt driving him. There's the Boy Scout driving him. He wants to be a superhero. That's more pure, and it has less to do with the Avengers. I think the problem with the current Spider-Man in the MCU is he's just Avenger Junior, and that diminishes him for me because, I mean, heck, for decades and decades, Marvel was Spider-Man. I mean, and Spider-Man is Spider-Man. He has his own world, and he has Doc Ock, and he has Goblin, and he has Rhino, and Craven, and the Sinister Six, and Morbius, and all these scary characters, and it just keeps going and going. And then he went all tech with,
stupid Iron Man Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, but Ben Reilly and the clones,
No.
Do we avoid that? Do we avoid that?
I mean, I
love that stuff.
I was a fan of it, but yeah.
Go for it. Go for all that stuff. The Spider Slayers and the, there's all kind of cool stuff. But anyway, I would say bring Spider-Man back as your flagship character. Coach the actor, whoever the actor ends up being. Coach the actor to be funny, like Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds should sit down with whoever's going to play Peter Parker and go, look, I've actually been playing Deadpool like Peter Parker should be, because Peter Parker should be the funniest character in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Literally. It should be quippy.
Have you not read a Spider-Man book? Be funny.
Yeah.
I mean, be funny.
It
should be hilarious.
That's what happens with No Way Home, is if they do pair him against the Sinister Six, he doesn't have the Avengers to call anymore. It's Spider-Man kind of picks up the slack, and we see his maturing process, and then leading into the rest of the phase, he's the one who's had the most sort of maturing at the start of the new phase of movies, so he does take that spot of being,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the centerpiece,
Mhm.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And what about, okay, real quick, because I know we're probably running out of time, but what in the world does DC do with this Robert Pattinson Batman? Have you guys heard what's happening with that? Tim, do you know the latest
I have
scuttlebutt?
no idea what's happening with it. Yeah.
Okay.
But
I wonder.
yeah.
What do they do now? I mean, you got this tremendous, like, out of left field thing happening with Justice League, the 4-hour Lord of the Rings epic version, right? And so now everybody's like, well, that's cool, but what's the DCU going to look like? And you know what they did? They took it out of a completely different doorway, and they gave James Wan Aquaman, and they went, okay, dude, look, you did a great job with Aquaman, and Jason Momoa is as likable as RDJ, arguably. So let's just do another Aquaman movie, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Another Aquaman.
As far as I know, the Batman is still on. Has been delayed until March of next year.
Okay.
And it has Colin Farrell as Penguin. That's interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a casting. And Andy Serkis as Alfred. I like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Okay.
Yeah. But I do. I think looking at Robert Pattinson's acting career post Twilight is the best way to go into that. I mean, with yeah. He did that. Was it A Good Time, where he was a super burnt out dude coming out of prison, and it's really dark, brooding, character driven drama. Yeah, The Lighthouse, which was it's a comedy marketed as a horror. With just where it is essentially a director took 2 actors and told them to go insane for 2 hours. Also he did one movie that was based off of a poem called was it Metropolis? Yes. It was Cosmopolis, which it is a poem converted to a movie that doesn't try to change. It fits the formatting to be in a movie with act structure and everything, but it doesn't change the plot hook. So the language is still the hook. So it is Robert Pattinson in the car for an hour and a half reciting prose.
Okay.
As a commentary on society.
All right.
So that's directed by David Cronenberg, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, so that's the kind of energy I look forward to seeing brought into Batman, not Edward from Twilight, but just
Not Edward.
no, but just dark, reflective, intellectual energy. And so I am interested to see what happens, but I don't know what it'll. I feel like at this point
it's gonna be.
Yeah. At this point, I feel like the DCU just breaks being the DCU for a while. You do your Superman movie, you do your Batman movies, you do your Aquaman movies, and maybe relaunch Green Lantern, and then at some point launch into, JL or something. Yeah.
Okay, here's a weird one for you. There was a rumor for a while that Michael Keaton was going to play the elder Bruce Wayne in a Batman Beyond movie.
Yeah, I heard of that too.
And that would be cool too, because then we get a new take with the younger Batman, but then we have Michael Keaton bringing his acting chops in to play the elder Bruce Wayne as a mentor, which might be cool.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think also one of the things that we are going to start seeing from Marvel, but we haven't seen with DC yet. But one of the things that I think really sells comics in general, if you have any sort of publishing house, is their ability to have alternate realities. Because it allows you to have these same characters people like, but tell a new story that isn't bolted down, and you don't need to tie it back in. I think sometimes that does ruin the timeline if you try to make it a timeline.
But that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that... we don't want to go this. I mean, it's past 11 now. So, does DC movies need to tie together for the whole universe to make any sense, or do you just make a bunch of movies and why do they really need to try to tie these characters together to make that work?
I think
is that a problem?
maybe just in terms of like setting or timeline, but or like this all happens within like the same 20-year span because we know that at some point they'll work together, but they don't need to well, this happens exactly 5 years before this other movie because this character does this one thing over there. At that point, it almost seems like you're getting too mechanical with it, which you can do if you have a person like a Kevin Feige, but DC doesn't have...
get the Justice League if they're not all together.
Yeah, but it's just you have, Batman does his thing with, Bane, roughly the same time period. Superman has a conflict with Lex Luthor, same time period. Hal Jordan fights Parallax, but you don't need to tie them all directly together. Say this is all happening because of this one thing. You're like, oh, then all these superpowered people find each other. Like, oh, we should help each other out and stop bigger threats. And because when you look at what the Avengers did, going to that, it's the same deal. Only they're like, okay, Iron Man's doing his thing, Cap is doing his thing, Thor did his thing. Oh, they all find each other, and that kind of makes sense. So that's cool, but it's not someone hard tinkering with creating these crazy conspiracy theories. Like this one character in the back of Captain America, the first Avenger, did this one thing, and Iron Man over here. It's you can do loose tie-ins or say this is all roughly the same setting, but it's not hard timeline together.
I would say just quick answer for you, Tommy, is let DC just do interpretations because it seems to work better. Again, because the framework of DC is that their characters are very much more iconic, which means they're open to more personal individual interpretation by the directors. So let a Nolan auteur style director pick up a character and do like James Wan's doing with Aquaman. There'll inevitably be a third Aquaman, so it'll be the James Wan Aquaman trilogy, and then maybe the Batman turns out to be good, right? So then how about this? You bring in Bane, recast, right? Dave Bautista, right?
Yeah.
And you break Pattinson's back and you do the Azrael story for a while.
Right?
Oh
yeah.
So it gets you do just these little and they don't connect. They're just okay. It's a multiverse. You've got something for everybody. You've got a hamburger and fries. You got a filet mignon over here, and then you got fried fish and chips over here, and you've got it all. And you let the artistry of the creators take their own do their own take.
Yeah.
So to speak.
I think my answer is strictly if they wanted to do a DCU copy of Marvel, which I don't think they should do. I think they should do something like that, where have Robert Pattinson's Batman run at the same time as a Batman Beyond, and don't bother explaining it. Like it's two Batmans doing the same thing, and then if at some point they do a Justice League movie, you can bring the same characters and have them reference things, but it doesn't need to be all linked together. Be like, it's all the same characters doing something at some point in the timeline that their movies happen. If you look at how a lot of the comics work, if they're not doing a major event, you have Batman in Justice League at the same time he's in his street title. Two completely separate locations doing different stuff, and they're like, it's happening. You don't need to, as long as the character is consistent, and even the fans may come up with the timeline for you too, like they did with Legend of Zelda.
Dean, tell us about this character real quick before we go. This is from your book.
The which character? It's not on my screen right now.
He is drawing, I believe, your female lead.
That would be Elizabeth Dane. For those of you familiar, that is a nod to a classic horror movie, but I'll leave that to maybe listening. But
because I'm sure people are like, "Who is Thomas working on? Who is this person?"
Elizabeth Dane is an amateur archaeologist. She's highly intelligent and highly skilled in terms of tutoring. Her father was an adventurer type who ran around with the famous adventurer Alan Quatermain in Victorian England.
Hmm.
And on one of their adventures, he went missing and never came home. So Elizabeth is not very thrilled with the globe-trotting Alan Quatermain and his ilk, but she secretly wants to be an archaeologist. She's fascinated by basically the same thing her father was, which was hunting down mysteries that are connected to artifacts and archaeological finds. Well, in the Victorian era, women didn't do that sort of thing, so she's sort of an iconoclast, and she's sort of left out of polite society, but she doesn't care. So on her off time, when she's supposed to be going to teas and cotillions, she instead puts on her riding boots and rides off and goes and hunts down cool stuff. So
And
she
carries
ends
a rifle.
Yes, she has a Winchester rifle. She inherited all this from her dad. So there's a little Tomb Raider
Cool.
feel to her a little bit. But it's really different because of her personality. She really is trying to prove herself, but also trying to show that, look, you know, I can do everything my dad did, and I'm actually cooler because he was kind of a jerk to me and was never around. But she finds a sword that
That's right.
this knightly order has been looking for a long, long time. It's made of a particular kind of silver that repels and destroys evil. And I won't give away why, because that's the whole hook to the story. But the story is about why silver repels and destroys evil, and what this secret order of knights that still exists in Victorian England, who are they fighting, the secret society that is battling them, and the nefarious things that counter-secret society is doing. She falls in love with my leading man character, Sam Blake, who is in England as a retired cavalry officer who is teaching fencing because he happened to have trained with Zorro, and he is an excellent fencing master, and he's challenging the British master at the time. And so she encounters him just kind of at a hoity-toity party, and she sees him fencing, and she's like, whatever, you know, self-important, arrogant American dude. But of course they end up, you know, falling in love later. But he gets involved with the Knights as well, and we basically solve the mystery of the sword, and the two secret societies clash, and we have a lot of cool stuff, and I like to call it, you know, Raiders of the Lost Sword in Victorian England. Kind of a rollicking action adventure. But yes, you are drawing Elizabeth Dane, and she's a crack shot with that Winchester, and boy does she face off with the female villain of the piece, who you'll be drawing soon also, because I'll do a drawing of her as well. So
Cool.
Alrighty.
Cool.
Well, this has been Silverline's Wednesday Night Wham, brought to you by History Camp America, July 10th, 2021. And that is brought to you by the History List, as well as Daytona Beach Comic Convention. You can find all information on the respective websites. You can find our information at silverline.com, as well as on our various social medias. Tommy, where can people find and follow you?
Just type in Thomas Florimonte, Florimonte, into Google, and you'll see mostly on Facebook, Thomas Florimonte Jr. I post, I try to put the stuff I'm working on that I'm allowed to put up. And you can go to infernostudios.com to see my own Kid Hero line of all-age books that I like to do, even though I like to do the mainstream stuff that I'm doing with Dean and with Silverline and all that kind of stuff. I do like doing cartoony, cutesy cartoony kind of stuff, all-age kind of stuff. So you can go check me out there.
All right. And Dean, where can people find you?
people can find me at the usual Facebook, but also at Comic Vine, where you can see my bibliography of all the comics I've done over the past couple of decades, and also Comic Art Fans, where I have lots and lots of original art displayed there in my gallery, and obviously at Silverline Comics as well.
And you can find me on all of your social media at TimTKWriter. That has been our show for tonight, so we're going to bid you adieu, and we're asked that you always remember that Sean Connery was the best Alan Quatermain, and to make mine Silverline.
Right.